We saw the man effectively in charge of the Commission's strategy on Brexit in Dublin yesterday, speaking to the Dáil. Do you have any belief that we're going to be seeing Ireland actually coming out of the Brexit negotiations in good shape? He assured everybody that they would.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's opportunities and threats that come out of Brexit, and obviously in the short term we're more focused on understanding the threats and trying to make sure we can help the businesses that we support in managing those. So those are things that come from currency movements, and obviously as Brexit moves forward, what sort of trade deal will exist. But the opportunities are clear in terms of perhaps even encouraging more foreign direct investment, as Ireland remains the last sort of English-speaking jurisdiction within the EU. And then also, as you've mentioned very clearly, the financial services industry impact. Ireland is an attractive location from that point of view, and it doesn't take a significant amount of movement from a UK base into a Dublin base to have a meaningful impact in Ireland.
Do you think, though, that Mr Barnier is listening to what he hears? Do you think Mr Barnier is going to take back to Mr Juncker this line that Ireland needs to be protected in these talks? Do you think that softens the talks as a result of that? A hard border between North and South would not be good news, and so much would flow from it. Do you get a sense that they're listening?
Yeah, I think that if you listen to all of the commentary that's come out about issues around the border, I think it is clear that both the UK government and the Irish government have done a good job of making sure that everyone understands how important it is that common territory issue is dealt with very sensitively and is to the fore of the negotiations. And I think any statements that have come out have really supported that. And I think the EU is fully behind the idea that it needs a special solution in order to address that. So I think great success from the Irish government and the UK government in recognising that issue. And I do think that the statements from Mr Barnier and the Commission generally do recognise that. The answers are going to be obviously difficult because it is a unique problem. So how those solutions emerge will be important, but people are definitely going into them with the right mindset.
Is your IPO on track?
Yeah, listen, the markets are obviously very attractive at this point in time. The Irish economy is doing well, and in general people are upgrading forecasts for growth in the Irish economy in 17 and 18, notwithstanding the Brexit effect. You've got a political will to do it, and our business is performing well. So all of those things are the key factors you need to be in place. We've had some good conversations with potential investors, and they're very interested. So I think we're on track at this stage. Ultimately, it comes down to the Minister deciding that now is the time. And his commentary of late has been very positive around his focus on a shorter-term issue. But ultimately, it's his decision. It's his shares.
Mr. Byrne, I want to congratulate you and your bank. You're coming up on the 10th anniversary, maybe it's the 9th anniversary of the courage of the Irish to actually do something about the financial crisis. When you look back in hindsight, how lonely was Ireland when they confronted their Irish banking crisis?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you go back, I joined the bank in 2010, so my memory starts being very focused from then. And around that time, the crisis emerged even more deeply in that period from 10 to 11, and then started to be solved. And everyone was looking at Ireland as if it was kind of unique in its problems. I think what's clear is that many other jurisdictions had those problems, maybe to a lesser extent, and kind of took a longer-term solution to them. I think the strength of the Irish recovery and even the strength of our bank has been because we did manage to face into them very sharply, take the action and get on, and I think that's always a better solution.
Yeah, well, you'd think that would work for about another 6 countries to clear the market out of Friedrich Hayek. Help me with this IPO that Guy Johnson mentions. Everybody else can IPO. You'd think you'd be first in line. How is your IPO going to differ from the pseudo bailout dilutions that we see in Italy and Germany?
Yeah, well, I think the bank is at a completely different stage than sort of a bailout type IPO. So, you know, we've gone through the measures. We have a high capital level of 16% CET1 on a fully loaded basis, and we generate close to a couple of hundred basis points of capital every year now. So the business is kind of fixed. So we're in the stage of the government now just recovering its investment and seeking to maximise its return, rather than putting capital in to rescue a bank. So it's at the opposite end of the risk spectrum to some of the bailouts.
Right. Mr. Moynihan of Bank of America has frequent flyer miles on Aer Lingus. Do you guys need to have a discussion? Are you such a national identity that it is unthinkable you could be merged with someone like Moynihan's Bank of America?
Well, okay. I mean, that's obviously an issue for somebody else to decide. I think the important point for us is that we have a franchise that. Sure, but we have a franchise that makes a lot of sense in the Irish context. We've gone about focusing on delivering for the core customer base here. So if somebody else sees that as attractive, that's an issue for the shareholders to decide. At this stage, we've one real shareholder, which is the state. I think in the short term, it's more likely that the state would see its value being realised from an IPO.
Yes.
But obviously, as time goes on, if a large player figures out that their interests are best served by having a larger sort of presence in the European market through something like AIB, well then that's clearly a value decision for a shareholder.